Ambassador of Latin countries in the east, cherished but adopted members of the Slavs, and influenced by 3 distinct empires in the past. Romania is one of the most specific countries in the world. It's known to everyone mostly due to a faint mixture of legend and reality. Yet Romania is both overlooked and underestimated as a destination to explore. However, our video will make you visit there as fast as gigabytes flow through the country or giga-BATS fly over it. Romania, as it's called by its citizens, is the 12th largest country in Europe with 238,391 kilometers squared, putting it between UK and Belarus on the list. And if we look globally, it is 81st, sandwiched by Ghana and Laos. Yet, where it matters more, on the map, Romania is neighbored by Bulgaria to the south, then Serbia, Hungary, Ukraine and their younger sibling Moldova. All these borders came to a total of 3,195 kilometers, with the longest one being with Moldova at 681 kilometers. Romania also has a coastline of 245 kilometers with the important Black Sea to the east. When it comes to the population, Romania is 9th in Europe with 19,237,000 people, putting it above the so densely populated Netherlands. Although there is quite a big drop-off between 8th placed Poland and their somewhat opposites we're visiting now. Measured with all countries of the world, Romanians count to the 62nd spot to find their numbers below Kazakhstan and above Malawi. Down south sits the capital of Romania, which is called Bucharest. This is by far the most populated city with a bit of over 2 million people. Then we have a few major cities that all have about the same population of just over 300,000 people. There's Timișoara in the west, the central positioned Cluj-Napoca, and Iași in the northeast. And then, of course, Constanta, which sits right next to the Black Sea. Romania absolutely dominates the surroundings in terms of population, as it has around 2 times or way more citizens than all of the countries to its nearby south and west, plus Moldova. And a similar ratio applies to the territory. The only neighbor slapping them on the fingers here is Ukraine, which does to Romania what they do to their neighbors, dwarfing them in terms of population and landmass. And just earlier I mentioned Poland being the opposite of Romania, and what I mean by that is that Poland is a Slavic Catholic country, while Romania is a Latin yet Orthodox country. That's right, despite what most people think, most likely people who don't subscribe to Countries Explained, Romania is usually classified as a Slavic country by default, while it's not. So if you don't want to make a fool out of yourself in the future, you better hit that subscribe button below, so we can teach you all about the countries of the world. The Romanian language also falls into the category of Romance languages, alongside Portuguese, Spanish, Italian and French. There's also the Romanian language. And I'm pretty sure you wouldn't think these languages descend from the same family, now would you? But I guess if we took a closer look at the name of the country, we can see that the clue was kind of in front of us all along. Although being the island that it is in the Slavic Sea of countries did have its effects. And for instance, the Romanian word for yes is the same one that the Russians, Serbs, Bulgarians and others use, which is da. But it's even harder to define Romania in much more tangible matters than language, like geographical placement, as it finds itself at the end of Central Europe, the edge of the Balkan Peninsula, and not quite in the far east of Europe. From these 3 directions came the empires that marked the Romanian culture and influenced the crafting of such a unique blend. The Austro-Hungarians, the Ottomans and the Russians. And even now, the country's status is a bit hard to detail, as it finds itself in the European Union, but not in the Schengen zone of passport-free movement. The euro, which we know, isn't the official currency of the country even though it joined the organization in 2007. The Romanian leu still changes hands, and if we were to exchange this currency for the euro, we get about 0.2 euros for 1 leu. 1 leu, on the other hand, consists of 100 bani. It's proving hard for the Romanians to tear away from their lions, which is the meaning of leu, although the banknotes being made of plastic might have something to do with it. Zoomed in within its spacious borders, Romania is easier to describe. Dominated by the Carpathian mountain range, the 3rd longest in Europe with a stretch of 1500 kilometers, which kind of splits the land in half. In this huge mountain range, we also find the highest point in the country, the Moldovani Peak, sitting 2,544 meters above sea level. The Apusini, meaning west, mountains put the finishing dot on this mountain chain. A temperate continental climate rules the land, with summer temperatures peaking at around 30 degrees Celsius. The country also has a nice mix of landscapes with the already mentioned mountains, but also fertile green fields in the south and a mixture of hills, grassland and swamps in the east. But arguably the second most defining geographical feature of Romania, after the Carpathian Mountains, is Europe's second longest river, the Danube. About 40% or 1075 kilometers of this mighty river flows either through or adjacent to Romanian territory. And Romania's landscape has a huge part in contributing to this river, as 98% of Romania's rivers spring from the Carpathian Mountains. And all of them, directly or indirectly, end up being tributes to the Danube. But something maybe even more remarkable than the river itself, or at least very impressive, is the Gondor-like statue the Romanians have carved onto the stone of the riverbank to honor the last king of Dacia. No, not the car company, but Deceval, the last king of Dacia who fought the Roman emperors to preserve the independence of his country. And it is safe to say that this river has had great meaning to Romania over the years, serving as a natural border almost entirely towards Bulgaria, considerably with Serbia, and the tiniest bit with Moldova, and then with Ukraine. Romania has gained more from the Danube than even John Strauss. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about right now, Strauss wrote one of his most famous waltzes inspired by the Danube in his piece The Blue Danube. But even these days, the Danube plays a vital role for Romania, especially due to the Constanta port, the largest one on the Black Sea, serving as a gateway between the east and the west. From here, about 74% of Romania's exports go up the stream to the EU countries. And speaking about exports, Romania's economy is helped a lot by being the fourth largest producer of oil in the European Union, and the largest natural gas producer. The economy is also driven by the car manufacturer Dacia, which is the country's biggest company in terms of revenue and accounted for 8% of the country's total exports. It's now owned by Renault, and the company's only factory is located in the small town of Mioveni, in the Argeș county, which is one of 41 administrative units in Romania. Yet, historically, the country is divided into three main territories. First, there's Wallachia in the fertile south. Then in the northwest we have Transylvania. And I know you've been waiting for this, haven't you? Well, keep waiting, I'm covering the myths in just a bit. And then finally we have Moldavia in the northeast. And no, we didn't forcefully unite the two siblings. You see, the country is called Moldova in English and the region Moldavia. These parts were quite populated in the 1st century BC when the kingdom of Dacia united, and which the earlier mentioned King Deceval resisted the Romans in the 1st century AD. Yet the empire couldn't be denied, and in the 2nd century founded the province of Roma Dacia across Transylvania. This combination of Roman and Dacian cultures marks the beginning of the Romanians' ethnogenesis. After all, the country is named after the local name for Roman or Rome, hence the Latin connection. Even though the majority of today's country wasn't under Roman rule for long, the area became the staging route for tribes of Goths, Gepids, Avars, Slavs and Huns coming in to loot, pillage, rule and migrate. Since the late 9th century, Magyars, which is the Hungarians, entered the fray and stayed in it well until today. Saxon and settlers are settled by the King of Hungary in the 12th century, with the latter still relevant, alive and kicking even though you most likely haven't heard of them. In the 13th century, the mentioned territories of Wallachia, Moldavia and Transylvania are established, with the latter being subjugated under Magyar rule, briefly uniting freely under Michael the Brave at the start of the 7th century. Yet his fame is in the dark shadows of a far more globally known figure, Vlad III of Wallachia, Vlad the Impaler. A ruler so ruthless, he served as an inspiration for the mythical figure of Dracula, with his father's title, Dracul, meaning dragon, played a role. And even though he was from Wallachia, Transylvania is eternally connected to the vampire lore. But Romania too as a whole has this mythical aura over it. Although Romanians shouldn't really fret at all. Sure, there are these stories, if it is stories, you tell me, but they also do have a much nicer tradition for the afterlife, like the Mary Cemetery. The famous place is known for these brightly colored tombstones, and also because they do, and I'm not lying now, have a tax for black magic. So, Romania is not the place to live if you're a witch, apparently. Moving back to completely real history, the Ottoman, Habsburg and Russian empires started fighting and ruling over parts of Romania through the Middle Ages, all until Alexandru Ioan Cuza is proclaimed prince of both Moldavia and Wallachia, which unite as Romania in 1862. Rejoined by the more famed Transylvania after World War I and fought on the sides of the Allies. In World War II, Romania first joined the Axis side, then changed sides as the Soviets were winning in 1944. Nicolae Ceausescu became the leader and the infamous dictator of the new socialist country of the Warsaw Pact, leaving behind a rare impressive legacy of the placement of the parliament, the heaviest building in the world, before his demise in 1989 and the revolution. Another, perhaps more positive thing if you're into sports, came in the socialist years when the football club Steaua became the first Eastern European club ever to win the Champions Cup title. Continuing on the sports side of things, the country has had a big legacy in gymnastics with Nadia Comaneci as the big front figure. She won a total of 9 Olympic medals, more than any other Romanian female. Today, however, the tennis player Simona Halep is perhaps the country's biggest sports star with a couple of Grand Slams titles under her belt. In entertainment, it's the Marvel star Bucky Barnes or the Winter Soldier played by Sebastian Stan who might be the biggest star the country has right now. Well, him and of course the electronic music hitmaker Ina. It is safe to say that Romania is very interesting, and that a video of a couple of minutes or a weekly tour would not do it justice. Luckily, moving to this unique place might be a great option, because underneath the castles run the third fastest internet network in Europe, and it has been for the longest time the leader of speed on the old continent. But if fast internet, interesting history and fascinating myths isn't enough, here's another reason for settling down permanently in Romania. They actually lead the home ownership rate globally, so renting battles aren't as fierce here. So from gigabytes to giga-BATS, hopefully you learn something about Romania, even though we only just scratched the surface.